Dan Pfeiffer, who's on one of those lefty podcasts, he's an old Obama bro, he tweets out, quote, credibly accused sexual assailant Donald Trump putting credibly accused sexual assailant Brett Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court tells you everything you need to know about the Republican Party. Now, what does credible mean here? What is credibly accused? Donald Trump paid off a porn star, apparently. He paid off some other model or something. I don't think Stormy Daniels has accused him of assault. I don't think any of the other public people have accused him of assault. There are a lot of accusations that are surrounding a lot of these people. But where is the credibility? What is, and obviously the Brett Kavanaugh thing is absurd. From Susan Hennessy at CNN, quote, it is worth pondering that if this doesn't make a difference, and good money says it won't, 2 of the 9 justices of the U.S. Supreme Court will have been credibly accused of serious sexual misconduct. What a statement to the women of this country. Now she's referring to Clarence Thomas, who in 1991, same exact thing happened. He was about to go through, and at the last minute they sprung up some allegation of sexual harassment by a woman named Anita Hill. Even though Anita Hill had worked with him for a long time, there had never been, doors were open, they'd never heard anything about this, they couldn't get good witnesses on it. They totally railroaded him and have really damaged his reputation needlessly. Brendan Nyhan, who's a New York Times contributor, quote, imagine the reaction to future Supreme Court rulings on women's rights if 2 of 5 justices in the majority and the president have been credibly accused of sexual misconduct. Credibly accused, credibly accused, credibly. They got their talking points today. But that tweet sums up what this is really about, because likely Kavanaugh is going to get through. I don't see how he's not going to get through. And a lot of insiders are saying within a week, truly there's going to be nothing left to this allegation. But what they want to be able to do is, once Kavanaugh's through, be able to run for the rest of his life and say, oh, Kavanaugh, he was accused of sexual assault. He's a rapist. He's a rapist. I mean, there's no evidence for any of that at all, not even in the accusation, but that's what they're going to run on, especially when it gets down to abortion questions. And Corey Robin, a lefty writer, wrote, quote, if Kavanaugh is confirmed, that means every 5-4 opinion authored by the court's conservative majority will include 2 men credibly accused of sexual harassment. If that doesn't call into question the legitimacy of the institution and the rule of law, blah, 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 blah. So he's underlining all of this. He's saying, we're about to undermine the legitimacy of our institutions, which they've been doing since 2016. And then Paul Krugman, former Enron advisor Paul Krugman, writing in the New York Times, quote, once upon a time, catching a Supreme Court nominee in a pretty obvious lie at the same time he's being credibly accused of other deceptions would probably have been disqualifying. But this is the modern GOP. Paul Krugman, a member of the party of Bill Clinton, John F. Kennedy, FDR, Ted Kennedy, all the Kennedys, Anthony Weiner, Keith Ellison. Okay, buddy, sure. The thing that, so we need to pay attention to this really closely, because when you hear this language, I think a lot of times people hear credibly accused, it's on all the news shows, and they'll just say it, they'll just spout it. If you're a Democrat, if you're a moderate, if you're a centrist, even some Republicans, it's credible. No, that was just made up. They pulled that out of thin air. A Democrat communications firm, which is likely advising the parties involved here, he said, okay, you got to use this word, credibly involved. They do this with videos. Whenever we have evidence of Democrats being degenerates on video, they say, oh, it was heavily edited video. Video is edited by definition. All video is edited. You started at a certain place, you ended at another place, you upload it, you put it somewhere. All video is edited. They say heavily edited as if to mean untrue. And they're saying credible accusations as if to say these are true allegations. And there's no evidence for that at all. You got to pay careful attention, because while we're talking about this, while we're debating this is the worst part of the whole situation, is they have us playing on their territory. So I think we've got to just put an end to it, make this vote happen, get past Kavanaugh, get past this nomination, because the actual headline today is that unemployment, joblessness, has hit a record low. It is at the lowest level that it's been since 1969. That's under the economy of President Donald Trump. What else has happened? Our stock market has hit a record high. The Dow jumped 250 points today. Why is that? Because investors are not worried about the trade war that the Democrats told us was imminent, that was on us right now, and sober Republicans said is not a real worry. The economy has never been better. It has never been better. Things are going great in this country, and they've got us arguing about a 36-year-old allegation where the woman can't say where it happened, why it happened, who was there. She changes her story. It only comes out at the 11th hour. She wants to testify. She won't testify. Wah, bah, 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 bah. We're talking about that nonsense, that pure fiction that they have crafted, when we could be talking about the real economy around us, the real political achievements of this administration. And they're trying to play that for the midterms. We should stop it. Stop all this nonsense. Give us a vote, put him on the Supreme Court, and move on, because things are going very well. I'm very, very lucky to have one of the great figures, probably the most famous lawyer who isn't on the Supreme Court in the country, a figure from all of our childhood, Ken Starr, he employed Brett Kavanaugh and a lot of the players, actually, who are in the news cycles today. He's been a judge. He's been all over the place in politics, and he's got a new book out, Contempt, about the Clinton administration and the special prosecutor investigation, the independent counsel investigation, the Monica Lewinsky affair, and on and on and on. Ken Starr joins us to discuss his new book and everything else going on in the news, all of which seems to involve him. Judge Starr, thank you so much for being here.
My great pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
So, Judge Starr, you have a unique vantage point, I think, in D.C., as you have held just about every important role and every role that we're seeing in the news cycle right now. D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals judge, Solicitor General, independent counsel, where you employed Brett Kavanaugh, professor, university president, chancellor, now the author of Contempt, which I very, very much enjoyed. I urge everybody who is a political junkie to read it, and not just that, anybody who is confused by this news cycle to read it, because it explains a lot of things that even I couldn't quite put together. And also for millennials, I know a lot of millennials watch the show. Judge Starr, you are a central figure in our childhoods. You were plastered all over television for all of our childhoods. So to begin, I want to begin with the job itself, and then we can use that to go into the news cycle, Kavanaugh, and all of that. There is a difference between an independent counsel, a special counsel, and a special prosecutor. You very famously served as independent counsel during the Clinton administration, and you write in the book that when you were offered the job, you didn't think the job should exist. You disagreed with the law that created the job. So tell us about that, about the job and how it fits into our constitutional framework.
Yeah, and the constitutional point is very important, but it's also very important at a practical, operational level. So it has both theoretical importance and practical importance. Under the independent counsel law, I was appointed to serve as special prosecutor, later named independent counsel, as the law that Congress passed was amended, by 3 judges to conduct an investigation of the President of the United States. Bob Mueller, our current special counsel in the news, is appointed not by 3 judges, but he's appointed consistent with the traditions of our country and our law by the Attorney General of the United States, or in this instance, the acting Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein. In that distinction of who appoints and then who ultimately can fire and who can guide and supervise lies all the practical and constitutional difference in the world. I did not like the statute under which I was appointed because I felt and continue to feel that the appointing authority for executive branch functions, such as prosecutions of possible federal crimes, should come from within the executive branch, ultimately responsible to the president. The issue has always been, well, how much independence should this outsider brought in to conduct an investigation of the president or those close around him or her have? And what the independent counsel law did was to say, we want greater independence, less of a connection to the Justice Department, but we're not going to cut the Justice Department out of the process entirely. So my final point, I was appointed by 3 judges, but at the request of the Attorney General under the law, Janet Reno, who was President Clinton's Attorney General. So under the statute that Congress passed in 1978 as a post Watergate scandal reform, a special division of judges was set up. They would do the appointing, but they rolled into operation only at the request of the Attorney General. So under the statute passed by Congress in the wake of the Watergate scandal, a law passed in 1978, 3 judges had the appointing power, but they rolled into action only upon the request of the Attorney General, who had information that, something needs to be looked into, an independent counsel should be appointed, but I, the Attorney General, can't do the appointing. And so the 3 judges on the special panel asked me to serve. So let the record show, as we say in the law, I didn't volunteer for the job, but I was asked to serve, and I did serve.
Now, that's how I feel about my job as well. I didn't volunteer for this, all this abuse here at the Daily Wire. So on that point, because that really does clear things up. I think a lot of people see these terms and they don't see the distinction between who appoints whom and where this falls. I'm not asking you to be too much of a political pundit, but as you observe the Mueller investigation, all of the accusations from both sides, from the president and from Democrats and from the left, how do you think the investigation seems to be going? Should it wrap up? Are there calls for it to wrap up? Should it keep going on past the midterms? How do you see it so far?
I think Bob Mueller is doing his job, and I have encouraged the president to leave him alone, to stop using. I know, exactly. Good luck.
Yeah. But, did you tweet it to him?
That might send a message, but no. I love my country. I want my president to succeed. Whether I agree or disagree with the president, I want the president to do a good job. And one of the messages in the book is that if you see a campaign to demonize the prosecutor, guess where that started? It started in the Clinton years. And in fact, the Trump team has been reported as saying, we're just taking a play from the Bill Clinton playbook. Demonize the prosecutor and do everything you can to stand in the way, deny, delay, and so forth. Now, that having been said, from what I have read, Bob Mueller, notwithstanding all the rhetoric and all the tweets, has enjoyed the cooperation of the president and the president's team. There's now a huge issue as to is the president going to be interviewed or not. But the interview of the president, if it happens, would come only toward the end of the process. So now to come back to your basic question, I think Bob Mueller is, if anything, he's winding down in terms of the investigation of collusion. Now, what we don't know is whether the Attorney General, here the acting Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, has expanded Bob Mueller's investigation. We know, of course, that his investigation immediately took him to Paul Manafort, right? And so there weren't just questions involving George Papadopoulos, General Flynn, which had to do with the possibility of connections with the Trump campaign with Russian operatives or Russian interests. Getting the guilty plea recently, this last week, from Paul Manafort is enormously helpful to Paul Manafort. To
Mr. Mueller, yeah.
to Mr. Mueller, to Bob Mueller, for obvious reasons. Not only does it save time, energy, resources, and so forth, having to go into trial. Trials are always uncertain. You never know what's going to happen. But here's the key point. Bob Mueller now enjoys the full cooperation, at least that's what's called for under the agreement, of Paul Manafort. So that helps get to the bottom of the whole issue of Russian collusion. Let me say, I've seen no evidence of Russian collusion. I know about we all know about the Trump Tower meeting in June of 2016, but I think that's been pretty much fleshed out, and no charges have been brought, at least thus far, against anyone on the basis of that meeting.
And I want to return to what you mentioned, the Bill Clinton of it all, the Clinton playbook of it all, because reading your book, I really love it. It's a trip down memory lane for me to my childhood, and I'm seeing all of these characters crop up again. Rod Rosenstein crops up, a lot of other people who we see in politics, and of course, the Clintons, and Hillary Clinton in particular. You don't paint a great picture of them, including in the title of the book, Contempt. How much of this owes to the Clintons? How much did the Clinton administration and their handling of your work in particular, but obviously other issues too, how much did that poison our politics and lead to our currently toxic political environment?
I think it contributed to what President Clinton himself called the politics of personal destruction. Politics is a tough sport, right? James Stewart, the Pulitzer Prize winning author of a book entitled Bloodsport, about the whole Whitewater affair before the trials began in Little Rock, and our 14 convictions, guilty pleas, and so forth. But what the Clintons did was to treat people with contempt. For example, Monica Lewinsky treated with contempt, right? It wasn't just a denial. It was she was a stalker. She was narcissistic. I mean, there were different allegations and accusations made against her. Paula Corbin Jones, who brought a sexual harassment lawsuit. That sounds pretty familiar, right? A sexual harassment lawsuit against President Clinton for his actions that she alleged occurred in Arkansas during the time he was governor. Well, what did Clinton surrogates say? The most demeaning thing. She's trailer park trash. Can you imagine that? And yet, the culture was coarsened. We think the culture is, some of us have concerns about the directions of the culture. But I will say this, I was stunned that Bill Clinton personally and the people around Bill Clinton could demonize women who had had either a consensual relationship with the president, or in the case of Juanita Broderick, a very colorful allegation that she had been raped, and I mean raped, by William Jefferson Clinton when he was Attorney General of the state of Arkansas. And one of the things that I don't say in the book, even though I praise so many people in the press, yes, I praise so many people in the press as being truth seekers. And one of those truth seekers...
I'm going to have to ask you about that afterward, but please go on.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure I'm going on. Shut me up at any time.
No, please.
Well, thank you. Included Lisa Myers of NBC News, who first uncovered the story of the alleged rape, and NBC News would not allow that to air. Now, think of it now, especially with social media. Now, remember, this is the time when some pretty famous and powerful people, other than Bill Clinton, were doing some very nasty things in the workplace, right? And all these things are now coming out. And I think it's a healthy thing. Now, I'm going to say this, especially in light of the Brett Kavanaugh situation. I believe in Brett Kavanaugh. I totally respect him. I've known him for so many years. He was with me at my side during many years of the investigation. We practiced law together. And I think the outpouring of support for him suggests that we are a long, well, he's just absolutely denied that this alleged episode ever happened with this person or with anyone, anywhere. But you're so right. It's one of the messages of the book. I think we've grown up in certain respects as a culture.
Well, and that question of the media and of Kavanaugh, because I suppose you're right. I suppose I can agree there are some members of the media who are truth seekers, though it's hard to find them these days. And I remember, even as a kid, the media destroyed you. I mean, they targeted you. You went from being criticized by Republicans as a squish, as being too moderate, to being this right-wing, rock-ribbed, knuckle-drag within 2 days, because the White House turned its attention on you and the media followed suit. We're seeing this all the way up through Judge Kavanaugh. Now Judge Kavanaugh has lived this apparently unimpeachable life. We should all be so lucky that the worst our enemies could drag up on us is this story heard for the first time 35 years later. But what is the media's role in all of this? Has that media role changed? Did it change under the Clinton administration? Or have they always been bulldogs for one political view over the other, for the Democrats over the Republicans?
I have a more benign view of the press. There are always going to be bad apples. There are going to be partisans who have journalistic, what am I trying to say, credentials, right? So they have credentials. Hey, I'm a journalist. I'm with newspaper X or media platform Y. But I'm very Jeffersonian about this. Jefferson hated the Federalist-dominated press and was eager for more anti-Federalist newspapers to get started and so forth. And yet he wisely knew we've got to have the free press. We've got to have an aggressive free press. So all I say is be careful of who you're listening to, assess it, but always ask the question, am I hearing the truth? Am I hearing fact, or am I hearing spin? And every White House has its propaganda operation. I understand that. But what Bill Clinton did with his operatives, the James Carvilles at the time, the George Stephanopoulos and so forth, those folks were masters at the art, the evil and dark art of spinning a narrative. But in the process, I don't think Stephanopoulos ever did this, but Carville definitely did. He made sport of attacking people. And so did Hillary Clinton. Bill Clinton was much more elegant about it. Obviously, he's a naturally charming and charismatic guy. I pay tribute to his many political gifts in the press. But Hillary is cut from a different cloth. She turned her back on her upbringing in the suburbs of Chicago. When she went to Wellesley, she became radicalized. You say, oh, that's a terrible thing to say. No, as I described in the book, she became a follower and student of Saul Alinsky, the author of Rules for Radicals. And what is one of the rules for radicals? Now, not rules for Christians, rules for thoughtful secularists, rules for kind atheists, rules for radicals. And what's one of the key rules of radicals? Attack and destroy.
Mm-hmm. Attack and destroy and lie. In the book, you talk about how she was so brazen in saying, I don't remember, I don't recall, I don't remember, that you considered charging her with perjury, if I'm getting that right.
You got that exactly right. And thank you for noting that, because part of the meta narrative is, Starr found nothing in Arkansas and then went after the president because of a private consensual relationship. So we all know that narrative. Even if you were a child, you now know. I mean, that's just part of our modern history, right? Totally wrong. And so one of the reasons I wrote the book, my memoir, is to set the record straight, to complete the records. And here is a fact, not fiction and not spin. 14 criminal convictions in Arkansas, and then most relevantly, in light of your comment, we seriously considered going before the grand jury in Little Rock, Arkansas, in the spring of 1998 and say, indict Hillary Rodham Clinton. But we made the professional judgment that we did not have the evidence, sufficient evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that she committed these offenses. So she was a very lucky person. She should be down on her knees, I hate to use that image, at night, saying, thank you, dear Lord, that for what I did, that I was not prosecuted by the independent counsel.
Absolutely, and that image of Hillary Clinton on her knees praying. I don't know, how does the saying go? The angels take care of their own, or I don't know. It's maybe it's a different saying than that. I don't know. I don't know who she's praying to exactly.
I think the angels take care of drunks and lawyers.
Yeah, that's right. It's throughout the book, I love that you continually return to what is the truth. We're after the truth. Everyone you're speaking to, Monica Lewinsky, whoever it is, we're after the truth. And it's something that maybe there isn't enough of these days. So I really encourage people to read the book because, I think a lot of us saw it on TV and we were told a certain narrative of what happened. And those issues are still affecting us today, and it's important to get that record right. Judge Starr, I've taken up far too much of your time, so I will let you go. Thank you so much for being here, though. I really appreciate it.
Oh, well, it's a great pleasure, and thank you for promoting the book. It's in many respects, it's a cry from the heart about our country and how good our country is, and that our system of law does, in fact, work. It can be quite ugly at times, but the ugliness is not our system of law. The ugliness is the human condition, the human being in our system, but our system is very structurally sound. May we keep our system of a constitutional republic Dr. Franklin asked us to do that on Constitution Day, September 17, 1787. May we continue to guard and love our constitutional republic.
Amen. Ken Starr, one of the most insightful people in our public life. So we've got a lot more to get to. We have a whole mailbag today, and I'm gonna get through all of them. Probably I won't, but I'm going to try to get through all of them. So if you are at dailywire.com, thank you very much. You help us keep the lights on and Covfefe in my cup. If you are on Facebook and YouTube, get out of there, man. Get over to Daily Wire. It's $10 a month, $100 for an annual membership. You get me. You get the Andrew Klavan Show. You get the Ben Shapiro Show. You get to ask questions in the mailbag, like the one that's just coming up. You get to ask questions in the conversation. You get everything. You get everything that you could ever want. Most importantly, the Leftist Tears Tumbler. You get the Mazie Hirono Tumbler. But the man, it's the man. Very, very good. Thank you, Senator Hirono. Go to dailywire.com. We'll be right back with the mailbag.